Connor Hayes sat in the command chair of the Horizon Guard and watched the stars drift slowly across the view screen. He had been commanding this vessel for 7 years now, hidden in the shadows of deep space. Waiting for a moment like this, his hands were steady, his mind clear, and his heart was ready for whatever came next. The ship was a marvel of human engineering, built in secret on a moon colony that most of the galaxy did not even know existed. The cloaking technology that kept them invisible was based on principles that would have shocked the so-called advanced species of the Galactic Council. But Connor did not think of them as advanced. Not really. Not when they valued profit over compassion, territory over life. He looked at the holographic display floating before him, showing a distress signal coming from a refugee ship 3 light years away. The signal was weak but unmistakable, a civilian transport carrying families from a collapsed ecosystem, desperate for help. A mother with children, an elderly scientist, a young artist, an engineer with dreams of building something new, all trapped on a dying ship with dwindling oxygen and failing systems. Marcus Douglas, Connor's first officer, stood at the navigation station with his arms crossed. His expression showed worry mixed with a deep sense of duty. Marcus had been with Connor since the beginning, one of the few humans who knew the full scope of what they had built. Marcus understood that this moment would change everything. "Captain, we are receiving communications from the region," said Lisa Morgan from the science station, her voice steady and professional. "The merchant vessels in the area are reporting the same distress signal. Our sensors show their response time would be at least 14 hours. The refugees will not survive that long." Connor nodded slowly. He had expected this. The major species rarely moved quickly to help those in need, unless there was profit or political gain involved. The Vexian merchants might arrive eventually, but their primary concern would be salvage rights, not saving lives. Connor had seen this pattern repeat countless times over his years in deep space. The refugee ship was carrying members of at least 6 different species, all of them homeless, all of them vulnerable. The Intergalactic Council had turned them away 3 times already. Too expensive, they had said. Too many complications. They had determined too little benefit. They had concluded. Emma Torres, his political advisor, walked onto the bridge with a datapad in her hand. She was human like Connor, but unlike him. She spent her days studying the complex web of galactic politics. She looked tired, as if she had not slept in days. "Captain, I have finished the analysis you requested," Emma said quietly. "If we reveal ourselves, everything changes. The political landscape, the power structure, our position in the galaxy. All of it becomes unstable. There's no way to predict how the Council will respond." Connor understood her words completely. He had been thinking about this possibility for years, preparing for it in his mind, even though he hoped it would never come to this. But now it was real. A choice had arrived in the form of innocent people facing death. "And if we do nothing," Connor said, his voice calm but carrying the weight of the decision, "the refugees die, their stories end. Their families vanish into the void as if they never mattered at all. That is the certain outcome. Not a prediction but a mathematical certainty." Julie Hansen, who commanded the tactical systems of the Horizon Guard, looked up from her station. She was young, brilliant, and had proved her worth hundreds of times in simulations and practice scenarios. She had never fired these weapons in real combat, and Connor hoped she never would. But if it came to that, she would be ready. "Captain, sensors show 3 Vexian pirate vessels moving toward the refugee ship," Julie reported, her fingers moving quickly across her controls. "They are not responding to standard distress protocols. They appear to be moving to attack the refugee vessel rather than help." The bridge of the Horizon Guard fell silent. The choice became even clearer now. It was not just about rescue anymore. It was about intervention. It was about standing. Between the innocent and those who would prey upon them, Connor rose from his command chair and walked to the view screen. The stars looked the same as they always did, beautiful and indifferent to the suffering of small lives below them, but Connor had never accepted that indifference. He had never believed that power was meant only for conquest and control. Set course for the refugee ship, Connor said quietly. Begin cloak disengagement sequence, Marcus. Prepare all defensive systems and prepare for first contact protocols with the refugees, Julie. I want weapon systems ready, but I want our approach to be measured and careful. We will show strength, but we will show it with restraint and with purpose. Emma placed a hand on Connor's shoulder. Captain, once we do this, humanity becomes known to the galaxy in a way that cannot be undone. Connor turned to face her, and in his eyes was a clarity that came from absolute certainty. Then we will be known for who we truly are. A people who choose compassion over indifference, a people who will stand against those who prey on the weak, a people who have been patient, and who have learned that strength means protecting others, not dominating them. He turned back to his crew. All hands, prepare for action stations. This is not a drill. We are going to save those people, and we are going to show the galaxy what humanity truly means. The Horizon Guard shifted course toward the distant refugee ship. The cloaking shield flickered and began to power down. The hidden warship was about to reveal itself to a galaxy that had forgotten humanity even existed. And everything would change in the moments that followed. The stars watched silently as the human vessel moved forward into history. The Vexian pirate captain had been raiding refugee ships for 3 years without failure. His record was perfect in its brutality. He took what he wanted, left no witnesses, and disappeared back into the shadows of space. The refugee vessel before him now was already wounded, already desperate, already defeated. In his mind, his name was Trelax, and he had never encountered resistance that he could not overcome with superior firepower and the ruthlessness that came from having nothing to lose. His 2 escort vessels flanked the refugee ship like wolves, circling prey. His weapons were charged and ready. The refugees on the dying transport would be easy pickings for his crew. Then something changed in the sensors. One of Trelax's officers noticed it first. A distortion in space that should not have existed. The reading made no sense in the equations of physics that Trelax understood. A ship was decloaking, but not just any ship. This was something he had never seen before. Something massive and sophisticated and radiating power like a small star. The vessel that appeared before them was sleek and angular, designed with clean lines and purposeful geometry. It bore no markings that Trelax recognized. No faction symbols, no warnings painted on its hull. But the moment it finished decloaking, every sensor on the pirate ship screamed danger. Trelax felt something unfamiliar in his chest. It was fear. That unknown vessel opened communications on all channels, and a voice came through, human in origin, calm and clear, and carrying absolute authority. This is the commanding officer of the human warship Horizon Guard. You will disengage from the refugee vessel immediately and power down all weapon systems within 60 seconds. You have no choice in this matter. Compliance is the only option that leads to your survival. Trelax laughed at first. A single human voice issuing commands to his 3 vessels seemed absurd, but the laugh died in his throat when the unknown ship fired. The first shot was not aimed at his vessel, but at the lead pirate ship. Behind him, the beam of energy cut through space like a blade and struck the pirate vessel, disabling every single weapon system with surgical precision. Not a single life was taken, but the message was crystal clear. The humans did not miss. They did not threaten. They acted with absolute control and absolute effect. Julie Hansen, standing at the tactical station of the Horizon Guard, felt the weight of her first real engagement. The targeting systems had worked exactly as planned. The pirate vessel was now defenseless, its weapons offline, its shields fluctuating wildly. Julie glanced at Connor, who nodded his approval with a small gesture on the refugee ship. Captain Derek Chen, the medical officer who had taken temporary command when the vessel had been damaged, watched in absolute shock as weapons flashed across the view screen. He had been preparing to die, to help the refugees, except that their end had come with dignity. Instead, salvation had arrived in the form of a massive warship, moving with purpose and precision that suggested a level of sophistication far beyond what he had imagined possible. Trelax made the only choice, his survival. Instinct allowed, he ordered his remaining escort vessels to turn and run, abandoning the false hope that they could stand against this unknown force. His 3 pirate ships fled in desperation, scattering across space like insects fleeing light. Connor watched them go without pursuit. There was no need. The message had been delivered. The humans did not chase down enemies who fled, but they destroyed those who stood in their way. The Horizon Guard turned its full attention to the refugee vessel. Now came the more delicate work of rescue. Luke Peterson, the chief negotiator and diplomat among the human crew, began broadcasting on all emergency channels in multiple languages. His voice was warm and reassuring, translated by sophisticated algorithms into dialects and tongues that would be understood by each member of the refugee population. Refugee vessel. This is the human warship Horizon Guard. We are here to assist you. We are sending a medical team to your vessel. Your people will be protected. Your people will be saved. We ask only for your cooperation and your trust. The response came quickly, almost overwhelming in its gratitude and relief, as the medical teams prepared to board the refugee vessel. Connor reviewed the manifest of those they would be bringing aboard. Children, the young, the old, the sick, the healthy, all of them human, all of them vulnerable and in desperate need of help. Young Alyssa was 8 years old, daughter of a scientist from a species that had ceased to exist 3 months prior when their home world had been destroyed. She had watched her people fade away one by one, unable to adapt to life away from their native environment. Now she clung to her father's hand as medical personnel led them to the evacuation shuttle. Derek Chen himself went aboard the refugee vessel to perform triage, to determine who needed immediate medical attention, to make the 1,000 small decisions that meant the difference between life and death. His training as a human doctor gave him perspectives that many alien species lacked: understanding suffering, understanding compassion, understanding the value of even a single life. The evacuation took 3 hours. Shuttle after shuttle carried refugees from the dying vessel to the safety of the Horizon Guard. The human crew worked methodically, professionally, driven by a simple understanding that each person they saved mattered. They did not ask about profit. They did not demand political concessions. They did not negotiate the value of a single life when the last refugee had been brought aboard. The refugee vessel was left behind, drifting in space, a monument to the indifference of the galaxy, and it would not remain alone for long. News of what had happened was already spreading across subspace communications throughout the region. In ports and stations and on command vessels, species were beginning to receive reports of a human warship. The message was simple in its implications. The galaxy had made a terrible mistake. It had assumed that humans were primitive, that humans lacked the sophistication for advanced technology, that humans were too divided and chaotic to organize for serious action. All of these assumptions were now proven catastrophically wrong. Trelax, as his damaged vessel limped away toward a neutral station for repairs, sent out a message to his superiors. The message was brief and shocking. There is a human warship, and it is more advanced than anything I have ever encountered. We were disabled with a single shot. We have no choice but to report this immediately. The message reached the Vexian command structure, where it was received with alarm and disbelief. That alarm would soon spread through every power center in the galaxy. A species that had been forgotten was suddenly the center of galactic attention on the bridge of the Horizon Guard. Connor Hayes watched as the refugees settled into the quarters that the crew had prepared for them. He saw the faces of people who had expected to die finding hope again. He saw children playing safely for the first time in weeks. He saw parents holding their young ones and weeping with relief. Emma Torres stood beside him and said quietly, "The galaxy knows now, Captain. They know we exist." Connor nodded. But his attention remained on the refugees, on Alyssa and her father, on Derek Chan carefully treating the most severely injured among them. They know we exist. Connor agreed. Now they will learn who we really are. The Galactic Council chamber fell into absolute silence as Councillor Kraxos presented the report. The Vexian leader, his scales rippling with barely controlled emotion, displayed the sensor data captured by the pirate vessels before they were disabled. The data showed a ship with power output that rivaled some of the oldest warships in the Council fleets. This was not possible. This was not acceptable. This was a crisis. Around the circular council table, representatives from 17 different species stared at the information in disbelief. The Zerdi delegation, known for their mathematical precision, ran calculations 3 times to verify the numbers. Each time they came to the same conclusion: the Horizon Guard was real. It was advanced, and it had been operating in galactic space without anyone knowing vexed them. A reptilian representative from the Krell Empire leaned forward with calculation in his ancient eyes. The species identification is confirmed as human. The humans were deemed extinct or irrelevant over a century ago. How is this possible? Where have they been hiding? The chamber erupted in arguments. Some councillors demanded immediate military action. Others called for diplomacy and investigation. The human seat, long empty, now became the center of focus. The humans had never claimed a seat on the council because they were too few, too scattered, too insignificant. But now that status meant nothing. It took 3 days for the council to issue a formal invitation for the humans to present themselves. In those 3 days, Connor Hayes received multiple requests for information. Multiple species sent survey vessels to attempt to scan for more human ships or colonies. Every message carried tension and barely concealed threats. But Connor did not respond to threats. He responded to something else. He responded to the fact that records showed humanity had been peaceful for 100 years. Responded to the fact that humans could have reached galactic dominance long ago if they chose aggression. But they had chosen differently. Luke Peterson, the human ambassador, stood in the vast chamber of the Galactic Council with the weight of his entire species behind him. Connor had insisted on honesty, on transparency, on the acceptance of whatever consequences would follow. Peterson was a tall man with dark hair and calm features. He carried himself with a dignity that the assembled species found oddly unsettling. Councillor Kraxos was the first to speak. Ambassador Peterson, we demand to know why humanity has hidden itself from the galactic community for so long. Why conceal advanced technology if you possessed such capabilities? You were obligated to inform this council. Peterson took a moment before responding. His words were measured and clear. Council members, humanity did not hide because we were afraid of you. We did not hide because we lacked the capability to engage. We hid because we chose peace over power. We learned, hundreds of years ago, that a species that reveals great military capability before demonstrating great moral capability will be met with fear and hostility. We chose to wait until we could show the galaxy not just what we could do, but who we truly are. The chamber went silent. This answer was not what anyone expected. It suggested a level of philosophical thinking that seemed almost naive to species that had built empires on military might and territorial conquest. Vex them. Stood slowly. You are suggesting that you deliberately withheld information from this council out of concern for galactic harmony, that your hidden warship existed not as a threat but as some sort of ethical choice, not some sort, Peterson said calmly, an actual ethical choice. Yes, that is exactly what it was. Our captain, Connor Hayes, discovered the refugee vessel because we monitor distress signals with the same attention that we monitor everything else in our territory. It was not accidental. It was not unexpected. It was the reason we were built, the reason we were equipped, the reason we were waiting. The revelation struck like a physical blow. The humans had not stumbled upon the refugee situation. The humans had been looking for it. They had been waiting for an opportunity to demonstrate that advanced capability and moral purpose could exist in the same species. Emma Torres sat in the observation gallery, watching the council's reaction carefully. She had prepared for this moment by studying every possible reaction, every logical response that the council might employ. She knew Connor was taking an enormous risk by being so honest, by revealing the philosophical foundation of human existence in the galaxy. An older Xerdi counselor, one known for wisdom rather than aggression, raised the question, Ambassador, what is it that humanity wants, if not to claim dominance? If not to seek territorial expansion, what is your goal in revealing yourselves now? Peterson straightened slightly. We want to protect those who cannot protect themselves. We want to demonstrate that power and compassion can coexist. We want the galaxy to understand that there is another way to use strength, a way that builds rather than destroys, a way that preserves rather than consumes. The council erupted again, but this time the arguments took a different tone. Some counselors expressed outrage at humanity's presumption to judge galactic morality. Others began to understand the implications. Some began to realize that they had misjudged an entire species. As Peterson left the council chamber hours later, he passed the Xerdi mathematician. In the corridor, the counselor stopped him with a simple gesture. Your words suggest profound confidence, the Xerdi said, or perhaps profound naivety. There are species in this galaxy that will see your morality as weakness. They will move against you. I know, Peterson replied, but if we showed strength without compassion, we would be exactly like the species that already dominate this galaxy, and we would have failed at what truly matters. The Xerdi seemed to consider this for a long moment. Your species interests me. Human. Perhaps you will prove more durable than the council expects, or perhaps you will be consumed. But you will not go unnoticed. Back on the Horizon Guard, Connor reviewed the council proceedings with his staff. The reactions had been mixed, but they had bought time for humanity to establish itself in the galactic community. Several smaller species had already requested protection agreements. Several neutral species had begun establishing diplomatic relations. Derek Chun sat with young Alyssa in the observation lounge. The child was recovering while her physical health was improving daily. Her emotional health was more delicate, but Connor had ensured that the crew spent time with the refugee children, that they showed the kind of genuine care that transcended species and culture. Alyssa looked up at Derek with wonder in her eyes. Your people are different from everyone else I have ever met, she said. My parents taught me that strength came from weapons and territory, but you show strength in protecting others. Derek smiled, understanding that this child represented something important. The future. Perhaps the way forward. Connor looked at the data streaming in from across the galaxy. Reports of his actions were spreading through faster than light communications. The pirate ships had spread the word. Stories were being told about the human warship that had appeared from nowhere. The galactic powers were beginning to understand that they had severely underestimated humanity, but understanding was just the beginning. What came next would be far more complicated and far more dangerous. The coordination was perfect. The timing was precise. The intention was absolute. The Galactic Coalition had decided that humanity represented an unacceptable threat, and that threat needed to be eliminated before it could grow stronger. 3 Vexian battleships emerged from their hiding positions near the human colonial settlement on Kepler Station 1A. Squadron of Krell destroyers dropped their cloaking fields and moved to attack from the opposite vector. The Zurith heavy cruiser accelerated through subspace to cut off any possibility of escape. Human colony had 15,000 people. The Horizon Guard was 3 light hours away. A perfect window of opportunity for a coordinated strike that would cripple humanity's ability to respond. Julie Hansen sat at the tactical station of the Horizon Guard. When the first alert came through, her sensors detected the massive distortion of multiple military vessels entering normal space. She immediately knew what it meant. The galactic powers had decided against negotiation. They had decided to test humanity's military capabilities by force. Connor was in his quarters, reviewing diplomatic communications. When the alarm sounded, he moved to the bridge with the practiced speed of someone who had trained for this moment for years. Around him, the crew moved with calm efficiency. They had drilled for combat 100 times in simulations. Now the simulations were becoming reality. Contact report, Connor said as he settled into the command chair. Julie's voice was steady. Multiple hostile signatures around the colony at Kepler Station 1. 3 Vexian battleships, 1 Krell destroyer squadron, 1 Zureth heavy cruiser, all charging weapon systems, all moving to attack. Formation suggests coordination at the highest levels. This is not a random assault. This is planned. Emma Torres rushed onto the bridge. Her face showed anger, but her mind was already analyzing the political implications. The Council was making a choice. They were choosing not to embrace humanity, but to destroy it before humanity could become too powerful. Time to contact with colony. Defenses? Connor asked. 17 minutes until orbital bombardment begins. Julie reported 17 minutes was both too long and not nearly long enough. But Connor had learned years ago that panic accomplished nothing. Set course for the colony. Mark our jump point. Now accelerate to maximum speed, Julie. I want tactical analysis of their formation weaknesses as soon as you have it. What is the most efficient way to disable those weapon systems without destroying the ships? Marcus Douglas moved through his calculations. Captain, the Vexian shields are strong, but they use a resonance frequency that cycles every 12 seconds. The window is small but accessible. A focused energy burst at the right moment could overwhelm their defensive matrix. We would take minimal counterattack. Do it, Connor said, but I want those warnings broadcast on all channels first. Every ship receives our communication. Let them know we will respond with appropriate force, but that we seek to disable, not destroy. The Horizon Guard jumped to faster than light speed. The journey from 3 light hours away to the colony took only minutes when traveling at such speeds. When Connor's ship emerged from the jump, it positioned itself between the attacking fleet and the human colony. Julie fired first, her weapon systems drawing on 7 years of practice and theoretical training. The energy beams crossed space and struck the first Vexian battleship at the precise moment of shield vulnerability. The defensive matrix overloaded, and the ship's weapon systems went dark. The crew survived, but the combat potential was eliminated. Connor's voice came across all channels, calm but carrying absolute authority. This is the human warship Horizon Guard to attacking fleet. You are engaged in an act of war against the human colonies. We are responding with measured force to protect our people. Your weapons are being disabled. In sequence, you have the option to withdraw and face no further consequences. You do not have the option to continue this assault. The Krell destroyers attempted to maneuver for a better firing position. They learned immediately that human tactical software was far superior to what they had anticipated. 3 of their vessels were disabled in rapid succession. Their weapons went silent, their engines powered down. Their crews realized the terrible truth: humanity was not just technologically advanced, humanity was superior in ways that mattered most in combat. The Zurith heavy cruiser attempted to break through the human defensive perimeter. Connor responded by positioning the Horizon Guard directly in its path. The 2 vessels faced each other. A collision imminent. The Zurith captain made the choice to break away rather than risk direct impact. The battle lasted less than 10 minutes. The attacking fleet had been completely neutralized. Not a single human life was lost. Every attacking vessel had been disabled with surgical precision. Every crew had been given the opportunity to survive. The message was clear. Humanity could destroy them, but humanity was choosing not to. The Zurath captain broadcast a message in desperation. Horizon Guard, stand down. We are withdrawing. This assault will be reported to the Council. You are making powerful enemies. Connor's response was measured and cold. Negative. We are going to assist the survivors in your damaged vessels. We are going to monitor your withdrawal. We are going to ensure no further hostile actions occur if you attempt to renew this assault. The next response will be final. True to his word, Connor sent rescue vessels to the disabled attacking ships. His crews worked alongside the crews of other species, pulling people from damaged compartments, treating the wounded, providing medical assistance without discrimination based on species or faction or side of the conflict. The young refugee girl, Alyssa, watched from the observation deck of the Horizon Guard. She saw human medics working to save Vexian lives. Krell lives. Zurith lives. She understood something fundamental in that moment about human nature. Emma Torres stood next to Alyssa. Watching the same scene, the political analyst understood the enormity of what had just occurred. The human warship had demonstrated absolute military superiority, but more importantly, it had demonstrated moral superiority. It had shown strength without cruelty. It had shown power without vengeance. Derek Chun was coordinating the medical response. The doctors, nurses, and technicians of the human vessel were working to save every life. They could reach regardless of the attacking forces, attempting to destroy them moments before. His staff followed his lead without hesitation. This was what they had trained. For this was the purpose when the battle was truly over. Connor stood in his quarters and allowed himself a moment of profound sadness. The galaxy had forced a choice upon him. A choice between survival and principle. He had chosen both. He had shown that humanity would fight for survival, but humanity would do so with discipline and integrity. The news of what had happened spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. The human warship had been attacked by multiple galactic powers. The human warship had defeated them decisively, but had refused to annihilate them. The human warship had then rescued the crews of the attacking vessels. The message was becoming clear to all who had the wisdom to see it. The galaxy had not just discovered a new power player, it had discovered something far more significant. A species that understood that true strength was not measured in firepower, but in character. A species that was willing to use force, but reluctant to use it without restraint. A species that was, in every way that mattered, superior to all others. Luke Peterson, still on the council station, received message after message from neutral species. The neutral powers were terrified not of human military might, but of what it represented. The future suddenly had a new shape. The future was being written by a species that had learned patience. wisdom, and the true meaning of power. The Galactic Council met in emergency session for the 5th time in as many days. The chamber was divided in ways that had never been evident before. Some species pushed for military action against humanity. Others pushed for immediate capitulation and alliance formation. Still others sat in stunned silence, trying to process what their galaxy had become. Councillor Kraxos stood at the podium and attempted to maintain order. His voice carried the weight of species that had dominated the galaxy for 10,000 years, but his authority was cracking. The military assessment is clear. The human vessel possesses technological capabilities that exceed our predictions by a factor of 10. The attacking coalition was neutralized without significant resistance to the human vessel. Vextham did not stand, but his voice carried across the chamber with ancient power. The humans showed restraint in combat. That is irrelevant. They are a threat that must be addressed before they become unstoppable. The Zerthi mathematician, who had spoken with Luke Peterson, stood and requested recognition when the council granted it. His words were deliberate and mathematical. The data suggests a different interpretation. The humans could have destroyed every attacking vessel. The humans could have annihilated the crews completely. They did neither. The humans exhibited perfect combat control. The humans chose mercy when they held the power to do otherwise. This is not a threat assessment. This is a realization that we are dealing with a fundamentally different species, an elder quill representative. A species known for their deep empathy and spiritual wisdom rose from her seat. Her voice was quiet, but it commanded attention. The humans have shown us what we should have been trying to become all along. They have shown us that power combined with compassion creates something magnificent. Power without compassion creates only monsters. We have all been guilty of the latter. We have now seen the former. The chamber erupted into argument and counter-argument, but beneath it all, the fundamental understanding was taking root. The galaxy had made a catastrophic mistake. It had assumed weakness where it should have seen patience. It had assumed confusion where it should have seen wisdom. It had assumed aggression where it should have seen restraint. Luke Peterson entered the council chamber with Connor Hayes at his side. The human commander stood before the assembled species of the galaxy. Connor did not look like what they had expected. A powerful military leader, perhaps, should have seemed more intimidating. Instead, Connor looked like someone who had made difficult choices and who would make difficult choices again. Council members, Connor began, his voice carrying to every corner of the great chamber. I come before you not to claim dominance and not to seek expansion. I come before you to make a simple offer. Humanity offers protection to all species and civilizations that seek peaceful coexistence. We offer trade agreements that are fair and equitable to all parties. We offer technology exchange that will elevate all species toward the future. We offer friendship based on mutual respect and understanding. Kraxos could not contain his frustration. And the cost of this protection. What is the price? What does humanity demand in return? Connor's answer was simple. We demand only one thing, that you stop preying on the vulnerable, that you stop using strength as justification for cruelty, that you stop treating compassion as weakness. We will protect those who cannot protect themselves, whether or not they can pay. We will stand against aggression, whether or not it is profitable. We will build a galaxy where being powerful does not mean you are allowed to be cruel. Vexthame laughed bitterly. You are naive. Human, you cannot force morality upon an entire galaxy. Greed and power are the nature of species. We have existed for millennia on this principle. Your naive idealism will last perhaps one generation before the realities of existence force you to compromise. Connor met the ancient reptilian's gaze without flinching. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps I'm naive. But I would rather fail while trying to build something good than succeed at building something cruel. I would rather my people remember me as someone who tried than as someone who merely accepted what was. The chamber fell silent. Connor's words had struck something. deep in the conscience of those who possessed one, and in the silence. A shift occurred. The shift was not immediate or universal, but it was undeniable in the weeks that followed. Natural species began requesting human protection. Non-aligned colonies began asking for human assistance. The smaller species that had lived in fear of the larger powers began looking toward humanity as a bulwark against the predatory practices of the galaxy, the Vexian Empire. The Krell Collective and the Zerath Federation found their influence waning. Their military might have been proven inferior. Their political leverage had been destroyed by the revelation of human superiority. But more importantly, their moral authority had been shattered by humanity's demonstration of what strength combined with compassion actually looked like. Young Alyssa stood in the observation lounge of the Horizon Guard, looking out at the stars. She had fully recovered. Now her new home was a human colony where she was learning human ways while keeping the memories of her lost people alive. She had asked to become a citizen of humanity, to work toward the future that Connor had described. Derek Chun found her there, as he often did. These quiet moments of observation seemed to help the child process the trauma and loss that had shaped her life. Derek understood that healing was not fast or linear. He understood that sometimes the most important thing a doctor could do was simply be present. "What are you thinking?" Derek asked gently. "I am thinking about what Captain Connor said," Alyssa replied, "about wanting to build something good instead of accepting what is. I think that is what humans have chosen to do. They chose to be patient and build rather than to rush and destroy." Derek nodded. "That is exactly right. The humans waited a very long time before revealing themselves to the galaxy. We could have come earlier. We could have claimed dominance. We could have conquered. But our leaders believed that a species with great power should have great wisdom first." Meanwhile, in the council chambers, a new dynamic was taking form. The human seat was being permanently established. Humanity was being recognized as a full member of the galactic community. But more importantly, humanity was being recognized as something unprecedented, a superpower that used its strength to protect rather than to oppress. Emma Torres stood with Luke Peterson as they watched the formal vote on human membership in the council. "We have created something we did not intend," Emma observed. "We came to save refugees. We ended up changing the entire political structure of the galaxy." "No," Luke replied with a small smile. "Captain Connor intended this. He's been planning this for years, showing the galaxy what we truly were, not through words or negotiation, but through actions that demonstrated our values when the stakes were highest." Connor sat in his quarters reviewing reports from across human space. There were now 17 human colonies established in the region. Several more were being built, protected by the reputation and promise of human strength. 7 different species had formally requested human oversight of their territories, requesting security from predatory powers, but Connor felt none of the satisfaction that conquest might bring. Instead, he felt the weight of responsibility, the weight of a species that had been given the opportunity to shape the future of the galaxy. He felt the weight of every life that would be affected by the choices he made. The choices his people made, the direction they chose to pursue. He thought about what Vexthim had said about naive idealism. He understood the risk. He understood that not every species would accept human ethics. Not every power would bow to moral pressure. Not every situation would resolve with mercy. But he also understood that if humanity did not try, if humanity accepted the galactic standard of moral compromise, then humanity would have failed at the most important thing. The Horizon Guard orbited above the human colony, watching over the 7,000 people who had chosen to make their lives here. Among them were the refugees they had rescued months ago. They had become human citizens. They had become part of the community. They had become part of the future. Connor received a message from the observation lounge. A child was asking to speak with the captain. A refugee child named Alyssa Connor made his way to the observation deck and found the young girl waiting for The stars stretched out before them. Infinite and beautiful and full of possibility, Captain Hayes, Alyssa said formally. As she had been taught in human society, I wanted to thank you. I wanted to tell you that your choice to save us has changed my life. But more than that, your choice has changed the galaxy. Connor knelt to meet the child's eyes. The galaxy changed itself, Alyssa. I simply gave people the opportunity to see that change was possible. That compassion is strength, that mercy is power, that a species can dominate. Without destruction in the great cities of human space, in the new settlements and outposts, in the vessels that patrolled the regions they had committed to protect, millions of humans were beginning to understand their new role. They were not conquerors, they were guardians. They were the species that had learned that the true measure of power was not what you could destroy, but what you could preserve, what you could build, what you could protect. The galaxy had made a catastrophic mistake. It had forgotten humanity. It had assumed humans to be irrelevant. It had